It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. Alan Saunders back after not being here on Friday with me and DB. Alan, how we doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Good to be back.
On Friday, we spent quite a bit of time talking about one specific player. You know how DB is when he has his guys, especially this time of year. Like, we went longer than 30 minutes, probably spent nearly 20 of them talking about one player in particular. But his name came up again today, not only in a question that we have, but also because of the lack of this name within the Steelers pre-draft visitors. So we're going to get to that name specifically in a second. But I just want to kind of like go through here and update. We have Darius Alexander reported coming in for a pre-draft visit. Today, we saw Kyle McCord, Jaden Blue, and Justin Wally come in. We had known that McCord and Blue were going to be Minnesota defensive back. Justin Wally, though, coming in as well. But, Alan, when you start adding these numbers up and get to the number that we're at now, it looks like, you know, the top of this class, the defensive tackles. Now, we saw Derek Harmon coming here. But if you notice names that are missing, Walter Nolen, Kenneth Grant, still neither one coming in for pre-draft visits. And when you start counting here, it looks like at least one of those two isn't going to be.
Yeah, and I'll caution that, like, you know, sometimes guys have reported visits that don't end up happening, but
just happened last year with Michael Penix with the Steelers.
Yeah, but like that, it sure seems like that's the way this is going to go down. That that the you know that there's not going to be a visit for either Nolan or Grant. And maybe both of them. There's no guarantee that we don't have some other off-the-board player like Justin Wally today come in to be a pre-draft visitor. So it's interesting, that's for sure.
It's hilarious. I just picked Justin Wally in the 6th round of a mock draft that I had done last week for the Steelers, and I didn't even know, like, you know, before knowing that he was going to come in for a visit or anything like that. So, you know, hey, if they wait on corner a little bit, very possible. Maybe he is that 6th round pick. Who knows? But, you know, I bring up Walter Nolen specifically. He's one of DB's guys. That's who I was alluding to. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about him as a player. I want to get your thoughts on him, though, as a player. Obviously, you weren't here for the conversation on Friday, and we can even tie in a question that we got here from our guy, Jay Mars, who's always given us topics to talk about on the podcast, because he said, seems like for whatever reason, Nolan is kind of like the third fiddle in that Grant, Harmon, and Nolan bucket. Are you along with that mindset? Do you feel like he is? Where would you have him compared to those other players, and just in general, the fit of Walter Nolen?
I would not have him third. I think he's a better player than Derek Harmon. I think he's a better run defender than Derek Harmon by a lot. And I think when you look at why the Steelers probably want a defensive lineman, you know, the run defense being what it was at the end of last season is a big part of that. I think the fit is fine. He's a perfectly normal fit for a Steelers, you know, 3-tech, 5-tech, you know, Larry Ogunjobi replacement that could someday be a Cam Heyward replacement or whatever you want to call it. I think he's a really good fit. I think he's a really good player. The questions about Walter Nolen are about, like, it's not necessarily like off the field stuff. There's just been some like compete level questions and just like some like personality type stuff that I think has popped up. He didn't work out at the combine. No one really knew why. Then he didn't work out again at this pro day. I'm sure there's been an explanation given to NFL teams, but it's all been a bit strange. And that's kind of been the way things are going. Like, just a guy who's pretty nakedly chasing the bag in college football. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it leaves a hard read for who the person is.
Yeah. And on Friday, you know, Derek and I were kind of talking about that. Well, that is still one of Derek's guys because of how high the highs are when he's on the field. We had both heard the same, and maybe you could speak to this too, that the Steelers were certainly one of the teams that were kind of put off by the way that he kind of approached his pre-draft process here. The fact, like, they wanted to see him work out. They were hoping to see him at his pro day and stuff, and certainly disappointed that he didn't. So it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't that last name that we're expecting to come in for a pre-draft visit, certainly. But from that standpoint, the real quick, my thought on just like this question that we got from J Mars here. I think if you were to tell me that all three of those guys hit their ceilings as players, I would take him. Like if you knew that each one was going to hit their ceiling, I think he has the highest ceiling of them. I think the Flashes are the highest of the group. And if he's to be a guy, to me, I have the least amount of question about him in terms of staying on the field for all 3 downs. I think that Grant could be a 3-down player. I think that Harmon could be a 3-down player, but like, I feel really good about Nolan as a 3-down player. But I think if you were to tell me that each of them are just going to be like, I'm not going to say their floors as a player, but like what they
most likely
fair expectation. Yeah. Most likely outcome, fair expectation for a player, then he might be like, I feel much safer about Grant and Harmon as players, if that makes sense.
I think Grant has a uniquely interesting floor because of how good he would be as a nose tackle for the Steelers. He has a really high ceiling. Like I don't think that Nolan's ceiling is necessarily a lot higher than Grant's. I just think Nolan's probably physically anyway looks like a little bit readier to reach it. The question there will be mostly personality. I have no personality questions about Derek Harmon. And I think he's a really good fit and probably the best pass rusher right now of the 3. So I think for me, he is probably the safest bet of the 3 with the lowest upside of the 3. And then you just have different paths forward from there, right? Like, do you want your risks to be personality fit driven, or do you want your risks to be, will Kenneth Grant ever learn how to be anything other than a run stuffer? He certainly has the physical tools to do it, but he has not really put it on tape. Like, it's just how do you, it's a choose your own adventure draft risk at that point. It's one of the reasons I think trading back is is a good look for the Steelers here, because none of these guys are necessarily like head and shoulders above the others. Let somebody else make the choice for you. Add some draft capital to what is a needy draft group. But look, I think we got to take the idea that they're not going to bring one of these guys in on a top 30 visit or on a 30 visit if you want to be on a pre-draft visit. I think we have to take it pretty seriously. Like, we only have 2 years of pre-draft visits for Omar Khan and Andy Weidel and Mike Tomlin running a draft, but Troy Fontana was here last year.
You mentioned, I think 5 of their draft select, like not just first round, like 5 of their draft selections in general.
Yeah, broader. Given how many of their draft selections have been to Pittsburgh on pre-draft visits, I honestly feel like that is more of a factor than the old head coach and GM at the pro day thing. Like, it seems like they've really, but it's also really hard to like, okay, so if it's not though, option 1 is maybe there's just one of these guys they don't like and they're not going to bring him in and they like the other 2. Okay. And they're going to bring him in and they're going to try to pick between those 2. That's sort of like one way you can resolve this. The other way is they're not that into defensive tackle. I have a lot harder time figuring out what happens then. Like, okay, then what? Or like, it is a deep defensive tackle class. You can make a good argument that guys like Josh Farmer and Jordan Phillips and Vernon Broughton in the 3rd and 4th round are very good value, but okay, then what? And like, it's hard to look at it's if we're eliminating defensive tackle because of the lack of visits, it's not like the visits paint another picture instead. They're kind of all over the place.
Sure. Yeah. If you're eliminating defensive tackle, okay, Harmon is really the only probably for out of the group that we know so far, right? So like if you're taking him off that board, that short list at pick 21 becomes even shorter, obviously. And then you're looking at like Omari and Hampton, Matthew Golden.
Okay, but Matthew Golden didn't bring in Ibuka, didn't bring in Burden.
Yeah.
So like,
for the group in general. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like, so it doesn't seem like wide receiver is that big of a priority. Okay. Didn't bring in any of the first round corners except for maybe Trey Amos, if you think of him that way. I don't. Where is the pivot to? I don't. And so, we only have 2 years of data. It's not a ton to like stand on in terms of making analysis. I wonder if they just feel like they got enough from a combine formal with Grant, the Senior Bowl with Nolan, that they didn't feel like they needed to go back there, or maybe they're like, I think we should. The thing about Nolan is that it was reported, Brian Baldinger reported that they were going to go to Ole Miss, and then they didn't when Nolan didn't work out. Like, I think the ABC there should tell us something about that part of the process. If this last one is Grant, I think we should have a pretty good idea what that means. If it's not, I don't know.
Yeah, well, as you were kind of talking there, it kind of made me think about this, and it's just like a duh statement. But I'm curious as to like your thought on this, or past years, the last couple, at least, if it's been this way, where it's like not getting a look at entire groups of early, but it's like specific players. Like I just mentioned, like, okay, Matthew Golden, but where's the other first round receiver? Unless you view Jaden Higgins that way, Trey Amos, but no other first round corners. I know that, like, obviously we have different opinions from maybe the consensus in terms of where Jackson Dart is on there, but like Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart, maybe the only position is a quarterback where they actually have two first rounders. Yeah,
I guess running back,
Marion Hampton.
Like Hampton's really the only realistic running back. So
yeah,
okay, that's two positions where they could. But even then, nobody went to Hampton's pro day. Like not even a position coach. I don't know. Like it's hard to find.
Where would you, in terms of the Steelers, pre-draft processes that you've covered, has this one, for the reasons that we're saying, kind of been unique to past years in terms of like, I know that we said last year on this podcast in terms of like trying to read the tea leaves and stuff, how we felt about it. This one feels like, even further removed.
Yeah. I mean, of the players that they could pick in the first round, the ones that have shown the most interest in are Matthew Golden, Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon. But then, like,
no pre-draft Grant, though, as mentioned.
Jackson Dart. Yeah, but like they're just kind of all over the place. I don't know. I think the uncertainty at quarterback has maybe caused a shift in priorities midstream here. Like, you remember when we were talking from the Senior Bowl and I knew going into the Senior Bowl, I had been told they really liked Milroe. I was told they really liked Milroe when they looked at him in person during the season. Mike Tomlin treated the Senior Bowl like Jalen Milroe did not exist. Like they were just all over the defensive line. But now, like if you look at the more recent visits and things of that nature, it seems like it's been a lot more quarterback focused. So I wonder if this is lacking a coherent look because things changed kind of midstream, that they were operating under the assumption that they were going to get Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, and now that they didn't, are changing their approach halfway through it.
I mean, yeah, not necessarily something I could speak. It's an interesting thought. And like, if you're trying to like following the process, it certainly seems like something, whatever that might be, that has changed. I don't know.
If you would have told me after that Senior Bowl that Mike Tomlin never saw Walter Nolen in person again after that, I would have never believed you in a million years.
Yeah.
Like that just feels tough to believe. And draft him. So like I mean I don't know. Someone is definitely falling off the board there in a significant way. I guess if it's like Grant had the combine formal, they did send TA, and I think Andy Weidel was there too. In Michigan. And there was also a report from Jerry Dulac that Tomlin and Omar were in Ann Arbor and then got called back to meet with Aaron Rodgers. So I'm not sure that Jerry specifically said Tomlin and Omar, but I think he said something along the lines like the Steelers were in Ann Arbor the night before they came back. So maybe they did get to meet with Kenneth Grant. It just has been kept very quiet. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I think just with they met him at the Shrine Bowl. They had the combine formal, sending TA to his pro day. I think that shows a certain level of interest in Kenneth Grant. Obviously, Harmon, combine formal, 30 visit. Those are the big boxes. Nolan, I think, is in real jeopardy at this point of us wondering whether he's on the board or not.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. While we're talking about defensive tackles, let's stick with that because Desert Cactus gave us $5 here. There's this notion in Steelers media space that's driving me nuts. Would love your take on it. Steelers absolutely need to take a defensive tackle in the first round because you need Heyward's replacement. That's in quotes, by the way. That's the notion he's speaking to. First of all, he's an eventual Hall of Famer, and the idea that he can just be replaced as easily speaks to the insane level of entitlement in the fan base. Second of all, didn't we just have this conversation last year? He surely had one foot in the grave with being 35, only for him to have a first team all pro type season. He plays with such a power game that ages incredibly well historically. Why are we all acting like it's a certainty that the absolute best case scenario is he only has 2 years left?
Well, no, I mean, that's not the best case scenario. Here's the thing. They don't just need to replace Cam Heyward, though. They need to replace Larry Ogunjobi, too. Like, if you use a first
and figure out what the role is for Keanu Benton, right? Like, is it just going to be, is he the Ogunjobi replacement, but somebody in the middle, or what's the plan there?
Yeah. Okay. Assuming Keanu Benton can go one way or the other, you need another defensive lineman right now. Yeah. And then you would hope that if Cam Heyward in 2 years decides he wants to hang them up, that player would then be ready enough. And look, defensive linemen have long lead time. Cam didn't play his first 2 seasons. So, like, and that's a first-round pick, a later one than the Steelers have this year, but still. The idea would be to draft someone now to play them the amount that Keanu Benton has been playing the first 2 years of his career, and hope that if Cam Heyward decides to retire in 2 years, that player is ready to take the step forward into that role. Like, it's not about replacing Cam Heyward now. And yeah, the idea that, like, I think you pretty well said there, the idea that pick number 21 is just going to be a new Cam Heyward, that's probably not very realistic. Like, you know, I mean, you could draft
as much as Derek Harmon has been comped to him.
Yeah, I mean, you could draft a half a dozen defensive linemen and not find the next Cam Heyward. So, yeah, I mean, but that to me is the idea, is that, look, and just in general, because I think a lot of people in the Steelers media are saying it because that's what the Steelers wanted to do coming into this draft. Like, they made it pretty clear that they spent 4 draft picks and their top 4 picks on the offensive line over the last 2 seasons, and then now is supposed to be the defensive line's turn. And that they need that type of investment on that side of the ball. Larry was not a long-term piece of this. Benton is 1. You need a lot more than 1. You need more than 3. And you know, like, I like Mon Adams a lot, but he's just a guy who's here as a short-term backup. Like, he's not the future part of anything. Neither is Cam, obviously. I mean, he's got a finite run here. So, like, they need to draft probably over the next 2 years 4 defensive linemen in the top 4 rounds. Like, that's not an unreasonable expectation if you're talking about rebuilding that unit the same way they rebuilt it, the offensive line. Does that mean they have to use pick 21 this year? No. I mean, it's a deep draft in defensive line. They could certainly go other routes, but I think that's why that's been the consensus as to what the team should do.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate, obviously, Desert Cat for everything. Obviously, they continue to give us these super chats and ask good questions for us to cover and stuff like that. But I can appreciate coming to Cam Heyward's defense, especially after last season. But, like, to me, this isn't a case where it was necessary to do so. Like, I don't think the interest in defensive tackles and people wanting to add to that room, that's what it is. It's an addition to that room. It's not to replace anybody right now. So, yeah, I don't think that the notion to add to the defensive line room is to replace Cam Heyward immediately, but obviously you need to replenish that. I think if you wait until Cam is gone to then try to add the piece that's going to eventually hopefully be that, like, that's where you get desperate. Obviously, you make a bad move, maybe you end up making a Devin Bush like move on draft day to try to get Cam Heyward's replacement.
Dan Moore and Kendrick Green starting, like that's the way you get to those places.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, appreciate that, Desert Cactus, as we always do. Also, just because we're on the topic of super chats here, Alan, we got an answer to why Dan 4824 is now a Steelers fan. Just because you asked. My name is Dan. I live in Texas, not far from Dallas. Had been a Dallas Cowboys fan for most of my life, but I tired of Jerry Jones and his antics. I think a lot of just Cowboys fans would share that sentiment. Decided to look for a team with better leadership from the owners. Steelers fans are probably rolling their eyes, some of them at least within the comments after hearing that one. My son had become a Steelers fan, which is a longer story, and my research indicated a lot of respect for the Rooneys in the way that they handle their business. I understand not everyone agrees with that. Between my son's loyalty to the Steelers and my view of the Rooneys, decided to choose the Steelers as my new team.
All right. That's a very interesting,
Yeah, I want the longer story though for how the son became a Steelers. Like, how was his dad a Cowboys fan and he became a Steelers fan?
I don't know.
I need Dan's son's story now. Now that I got Dan's.
There you go.
He's good at this. Now he's got me wanting the sequel. So,
yeah,
and by the way, you absolutely do not have to leave a super chat with every comment that you leave on the YouTube channel, because you're 2 for 2 with, at least from what I've seen of you on the YouTube comments. So, but we appreciate that for sure. Something else I wanted to get to, Alan, for sure, while we're on the topic of just discussing the draft and stuff as we have for most of this episode. Somebody reached out to me that's actually working on an article for Next about Pittsburgh and hosting the draft. And I wanted your thoughts on this as well before I gave my answer. What do you think like Pittsburgh could do that will make the draft experience special? Like, you look at the way that these cities host the event and the NFL's involvement in doing so, obviously, and kind of the way that they like incorporate the city that is hosting it into like a theme, if you will, of the event. What could make the draft in Pittsburgh special? Like, make it seem like it is Pittsburgh.
I understand this question was asked earnestly, but I just want to answer it sarcastically. Like, I just want to come up with like bad ideas that would make the draft be all about Pittsburgh.
All right.
Like, we should hold it inside an active blast furnace and just see like one more test. Like, how much heat are you prepared to deal with? Let's go.
Okay.
Like, there's just so many good, bad answers to this. Like a real good answer to how you could make the draft uniquely Pittsburgh is the thing about Pittsburgh is that I don't think people are very well aware of our lengthy list of contributions to the world and the way they are played out. And usually in the second and third rounds, you have like people that are tied to other city, whatever. Yeah, the Steelers send whatever, Rocky Blyer to announce their third round pick or whatever. I think some way to incorporate all those people that are like, our sort of our Leo Point, like from here people, would be a good way to make the draft all about Pittsburgh, because I think like there's a large number of people that are actors or people in Hollywood or people that are comfortable going on TV and doing this kind of thing that would love to be like, oh, you need me to go do a hit before a draft pick in front of the Mr. Rogers statue and talk about WQED. Or you need me to go at the top of the Cathedral Learning and talk about Jonas Salk for 30 seconds. Like, absolutely, there are a ton of Pittsburgh people that would do that. And I think that is
so you're saying let's like celebrities in general, not just in like the football space.
Yeah, absolutely. Like let's get Seth Meyers involved. Let's get all the Michael Keaton and all the sort of like Pittsburgh celebrity people that are all out there, turn it into like a Pittsburgh love fest and have them tell the story of the city. You're going to get those beautiful views of the point and the river and the stadium that we all love. And that's great. And it certainly is beautiful. But I think like Pittsburgh is much more about who we are than what we are, and I think showing that off would be a pretty unique way to go about it.
That's interesting. Yeah, see, I was honestly, it's funny that because like that's why I said about the football players, because that was kind of the first thing I thought about was just like football players from this area announcing the team's draft picks of where they came from. Obviously, you have like Revis or Namath doing the Jets, Aaron Donald would.
Oh my God, you could do that for like every team.
Yeah,
like you could just do a Pittsburgh either from the city or went to Pitt player from almost every NFL team announce an entire round of draft picks. That'd be pretty good. By the way, I think that is something more along the lines of what they are going to be.
Yeah. Any like I was trying to think of something like food related that they could like I don't know, like tie into the draft in some way, but I was like really stumbling. I was just like, how could we incorporate the Pittsburgh food scene into this?
I mean, I don't know. There are good ways. We have good food, but it's weird food, and that's not going to play well, I think. But yeah.
Also, too, like, is it like one thing specific? I mean, unless you're talking about like something like, I don't know, pierogies, obviously, or like, because it just seems like there's a lot of really good things, but there's not one specific thing that I could say.
Yeah, we don't have like that one. I mean, a Permane sandwich, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I like Permanis, but yeah.
Yeah. I think the people is the way to go about it.
Yeah.
For me. And I like your idea and I like my idea too. I think they can coexist.
I want to know if there's anything. Obviously, we've left a lot on the table. I want to know in the comments what people think Pittsburgh specifically could do for the NFL draft to make it unique to Pittsburgh. So let me know in the comments, and I'll pass along the best ones to Donnie here as she writes her article, and we'll see how many of them can make the article. Last question that we got here comes from Drew Johnson via Twitter DMs. He's always good for giving us questions too. Given there seems to be very few teams who want to trade up, how do you think that could affect the Steelers' ability to trade up to try to get a Shedeur Sanders if he were to fall, i.e. would the asking price for a top 15 pick be less than normal in your estimation? Love what y'all do. Keep it up.
That's a good question. I think it is mostly just dependent on who else is trying to do things. What, is there another team that's trying to come up or not? That's a big factor. If you're the only one trying to come up, you will probably not pay as much. But if somebody else also wants to come up, then you're going to have to meet them. What's on the board? How, do teams feel comfortable trading down? It's one thing to say, yeah, this is a bad class, would be fine with adding capital, but then you look at the board and you say, ooh, who's really going to be there in 6 or 7 picks? Man, that's ugly. Never mind. So you kind of need an interesting confluence of events to specifically trade up at any one given point. I don't really think the quality of the draft class in general matters as much as those specific. If they were trying to make a trade now, if the Steelers were looking at the board and just saying hey, we're not going to get it at 21, we got to be up, that would be one thing. But if you're talking about targeting a specific player that's falling, I don't really think it matters that much. It's all micro, not macro.
Yeah, well, I was going to say too, we can get a relatively good indication in terms of a trade value chart, what it takes to trade up, right? The points, trying to get them equal on the trade value chart. But you really can't equate for, say there's 4 teams that feel pretty good about Shedeur Sanders in the middle of that round, but 2 of them have already obviously gone. Say the Giants and Browns both like him, but not enough to take him at 2 and 3. They've already taken Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, whatever it might be, and would be willing to move back up. Then you have the Steelers, you got the Rams at 26. If you have 4 teams that are trying to trade there as opposed to just the Steelers, obviously goes without saying that there's going to be a higher price to pay for doing so. But yeah, so it's just hard to sit here right now and say this is exactly what it's going to cost to do so.
Yeah, it's all. That's why those charts are fine and they're good to get you a ballpark of what it probably will cost. But it's hard to. Yeah, that's not, it's not real life. And it's hard to say you can make that trade.
But just in general, the idea that not a lot of teams would be wanting to trade up, sure. Yeah, it would cost.
But a bad draft class doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of teams won't want to trade up. It may mean that some teams will want to trade up. They'll say, this is the only guy in the draft we want. We better go get him. Yeah. So I don't think those things are necessarily 1-to-1 related.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, because if there's teams, like I said, let's just use those 2 examples still, Cleveland and the Giants, that aren't going to pick a quarterback at 2 or 3 because they feel like there's not worth one taking there, but would be willing to, in the middle or in the early 20s or whatever it be, say the Broncos at 20, moving right ahead of the Steelers, something like that. Maybe they only like Shedeur Sanders in that spot and don't like Jackson Dart. So if they feel like Shedeur's the only other quarterback worth taking there, again, bidding war created just based off that.
I think Ashton Genty is a player where it's If you really want a running back, go get him. Like what don't settle for second best if you're in the like 10 to 15 range. Like there's a lot of those guys in this class where I think it's going to be very specific to each situation.
I know you said you like Shador's top half of the first round prospect for you, right? Like 15,
about like 15. Yeah.
So, do you think that he just in general, not knowing what the cost would be, just the idea of trading up, that it would be worth it to do so?
I would be okay with moving up a couple of picks.
Okay.
5 feels like a lot, depending on the asking.
Because I've come around to the idea of like if he falls to 21, they take him. Completely fine with that. Sure.
It feels very much like the Kenny Pickett year, where like they did most of their draft assuming that he would not be available to them, and then all of a sudden he is. Like everyone always tells me, like, oh, you can't believe the Steelers. They spent a whole draft year talking up Malik Willis. I'm like, yeah, they were gonna take Malik Willis. They didn't think Kenny Pickett was gonna be there, and they were gonna take Malik Willis if he wasn't. I feel like in a lot of ways, like again, like we talked a lot. No, I don't think we had any expectation that Shedeur Sanders was going to be anywhere near 21 a month and a half ago. Even
I would have
beyond that.
Yeah, I would have said like 2-3 weeks ago. I would have thought like the floor is 9.
And I'm still fairly skeptical about it, to be perfectly honest. Like I know people are talking about it, but I'm not really buying it.
Well, like, and everybody just makes it seem like
I would still say it's more likely that he is taken in the top 5 than he makes it to the Steelers at 21.
Okay, I was going to say the only thing I was going to add there was everybody makes it seem like, okay, he gets past the Saints. Who's the team that's taking him? It doesn't have to be a team that's in that spot right now. Like you can look at the teams that are there right now and say, is there a clear team that makes sense? Maybe not. I mean, I can make the case for a couple probably, but it doesn't have to be a team that's in that spot right now. Somebody could move up. I just presented the cases for doing so. So why
would he make it past the Saints? Like a lot of people are saying that, well, if he just makes it past the Saints, it's like they don't have a quarterback. Like, I mean, I guess they could go
Spencer Rattler and punt on 25.
Jake Hayner, I think, is there as well still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
GTJ.
I don't, and I think a
lot of thought that they believe or that they like Jackson Dart more as well.
I mean, that's possible, I suppose. The other thing is with the Giants and the Browns, how are they looking at this and thinking and seeing the Saints so needy, the Steelers showing clear interest at quarterback and thinking, oh, somebody will get back to us at 32 and at 33 and 34. Like, like I think it's a lot more likely that they're moving either back in the first round or back up into the first round from the second round to make something like this happen, or just taking them at 2 or 3. Like I still think those are.
We got one of the most active GMs over the years in terms of moving around a draft board. John Schneider, 3 picks in front of the Steelers at 18. The Seahawks.
Yeah. So, and I think the Jets are an untalked about option here as well. Like I know they signed Justin Fields, but that's a 2-year deal. I think they would be a pretty decent landing spot here too. So we'll see.
Sure. All right. The draft conversations will continue on this very podcast tomorrow. Alan, until then, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now sites account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid. Subscribe for SN Plus. Like, we got a couple new ones here. Let's see. Like Daniel Coleman and Jamie Gregory did. Both of those on Friday. So how about that? Thanks, Daniel and Jamie. Really appreciate you both. And, of course, like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel so you don't miss episodes. Steelers Morning Rush, Steelers Afternoon Drive, all that good stuff. We are just rolling, man. 15,400 and Kevin Rader subscribers.
Oh, boy. Okay.
That's 87 to those.
Yeah.
May not know.
I wish I could transcend the sports world here and go with somebody else. I'm trying to stick to football. Who's number 87? Oh, Mark Bruner, right?
Mark Bruner. Yes, 87.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. There we go. I'll go with him. Stick with the tight ends.
Super Bowl champion Larry Brown played tackle wearing 87 after he moved from tight end to
he kept 87 even after
he started as a tight end wearing 87, and eventually wore 79 as a tackle.
Okay, yeah.
There was like some overlap though, where might have been a year where he played. He played mostly tackle, but still wearing 87.
I like that a lot, actually. Hey, people want Darnell Washington to make a transition to tackle wear number 80. So
there you go. And our guy Rodney Williams, who his birthday yesterday, I think. So there you go.
There we go.
Shout out
birthday, Hot Rod. And shout out to Daniel.
I was totally wrong.
Oh, okay. Shout out to Daniel and Jamie for subscribing to SN Plus. Their names to be scrolling across the bottom here, just their first names, because I couldn't remember exactly which their last names were, but we'll pretend that it's just because I wanted to put just first names. But anyway, their names scrolling across the bottom. Get your name on that list by subscribing to SN Plus. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about today. Again, I want some thoughts on how we can make the draft unique to Pittsburgh when it does come here in those comments, questions for a future episode, all that good stuff. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing over on TikTok, and then you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.